Hello and welcome to the Voices of Victory podcast. I am your host, Mario De Leone, and today we're going to talk about narcissism and chocolate cake, the chocolate cake effect. Now, I'm going to open up with a song from Courtney Love. There was a quote from her song, "I want to be the girl with the most cake." Now, essentially, she sang that with a war cry. And most people thought she meant the icing, the glam, the glitter, the visual feast. But if you look deeper, she was talking about substance, which was the cake itself. Maybe she was saying, I want the real thing, not the decoration, but the depth, the nourishment. And that lyric sets the stage for what psychologist Dr. W. Keith Campbell calls the chocolate cake model of narcissism. It's an idea that exposes how we get seduced by certain types of people and why relationships that start off with a sugar rush often leave us bitter in the end. And the chocolate cake versus broccoli, right? Broccoli being nutritious, that whole broccoli dilemma. Campbell's metaphor is simple and brilliant. Choosing a narcissistic partner is like going for chocolate cake. It's going for the icing. More often than not, you get caught up in the icing, the appeal, the visual appeal, or the things that look good, right? Going for that chocolate cake. Choosing an emotionally and healthy, agreeable partner, maybe not. When you're going for a narcissist, they're hardly agreeable. Everything is conflict. And that's broccoli. Broccoli can be healthy, can have a sense of agreeableness in the relationship. And chocolate cake is indeed tempting. It's indulgent. And you know what? It's also satisfying at first. And that's what narcissistic relationships feel like. They pull you in with the charm, the intensity, the allure, but eventually that sweetness turns sour. You crash hard and you regret it, and you're often left with more damage than delight. And as far as broccoli, on the other hand, it isn't flashy, it doesn't look great, but it doesn't seduce your senses so much. But it's what sustains you in the long term. It's the kind of love that might not thrill you on the first bite, but it feeds your heart and nourishes your body and soul over time. Kindness, reliability, emotional intelligence, these are all traits that make relationships actually last. Now, in terms of some people using agreeableness, they'll say, well, your partner should be agreeable. We have to beware of the agreeable slippery slope because, quite honestly, conflict can indeed be healthy. But we need to understand that conflict will challenge you and help you grow. But there is a point of no return where the conflict is undermining and destroying trust. That's where it gets to be a bit much. So for other YouTube influencers out there, they will say, well, agreeableness, they should be agreeable. Your partner should be agreeable. I can't agree with that all the time. That's the conundrum here. I can't agree with that all the time. I think there's too much gray area in relationships. And I think it's important for us to know that when you're dealing with a person that's agreeable all the time, you may not be challenged, you may not grow, and you may not be able to get to the bottom of things. I have been in relationships where the partner was agreeable all the time, and there never was any conflict. And sometimes we avoid conflict, anything that, you know, gives us a quiet life, right? I want peace and quiet and not justice, right? Not any justice or not any growth for that matter. It can undermine growth. So when it comes to the chocolate cake effect, the trap of icing, is to be understood that here's the thing that narcissists know that they sell the icing. They dress up the cake really well. And there's not much nutritional value in chocolate cake. Okay, they know what to say, they know when to say it, and how to say it. The confidence, the charisma, the well-cut jacket, the curated Instagram life, that's their toolkit. That's their little bag of tricks. It's a performance presentation. And they're experts in giving you everything except the actual substance. Matter of fact, they keep you pursuing substance. So we fall for it because icing is intoxicating. It's thrilling to feel chosen. We feel like we're being swept off our feet from someone who feels so magnetic and powerful. But a narcissist understands and uses this very strategically. They don't lead with sparkle. So you don't always question what's underneath, right? So we have to take a good hard look at the way they use a weapon like emotional unavailability or manipulation or the inability to truly connect with you at a deep level. They might even meet up with you and make sure they may ensure that it's short lived. And that's just so they can keep you coming back for more. And this isn't the idea where, they're just doing it so blatantly. They're doing it with a hidden agenda in mind. This is the emotional equivalent of just eating nothing but the frosting. There's no substance. It's sweet at first, it eventually makes you sick. Meanwhile, the person who brings you real value with empathy, trust, presence, they may get overlooked because they don't come dressed in that sugary external gloss that's there, right? So why we keep eating the cake, that's the thing, is people want to be the one chasing all of the cake, right? There's a deeper psychological reason that this happens is that narcissists, they activate our reward system. They often come across sexy, dominant, and status oriented traits that we're biologically wired to find attractive. Like that's the whole thing. Society doesn't help either because with the pop culture, social media glamorizing the narcissist toolkit, making it even easier to confuse and tell the sharks from the guppies, right? A true confident person from a narcissist. So we keep eating the cake, even when we know we'll actually regret it because it feels good in the moment, only in the moment. And the real regret is when the aftermath later down the line, it tells you the actual truth. And people who have been in these kinds of relationships report feeling deceived, controlled, and emotionally drained. They describe their ex-girlfriend, ex-husband as self-centered, manipulative, even cruel. Now, the major problem with this today is these terms. You got to remember narcissism, NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, is a personality disorder in the DSM-5. Okay, that is the manual in psychology. And what I want you to understand is that people are looking at these labels and weaponizing them in social media. So when someone's confident, the first thing they say is, oh, they're a narcissist. So they point the finger at them. Anybody who's confident. So that's the problem, is that people are not able anymore to tell the sharks from the guppies, the confident person from the narcissist. And the chocolate cake effect is that the confident person may come to you with actual substance. They may look great. They may have some icing on the surface, but in actuality, they could be really confident underneath and have a lot of presence with them. And we may mistaken them for the narcissist. And that's where people are getting confused. So what's happening on social media more than ever is people are overdiagnosing, underdiagnosing, and weaponizing the term narcissism. Now, I want to just explain that, narcissist traits, they seem magnetic at first, but it becomes the very reason that relationships actually collapse. But here's the big point. The regret that you have is rarely mild because deep down inside, people realize that they didn't just lose a relationship, you lose part of yourself in that big fat illusion. We don't see things as they are, we see things as we are. We have our little biases, our little filters. So people overlook the power of nice in contrast, right? And guess what? Another way of looking at it is people in relationships with agreeable, kind partners describe something very different. Understand agreeable is good, but conflict can indeed be healthy. And that's where I think a lot of the influencers out there, they think that everybody should just be 100% agreeable. And agreeable doesn't constitute no conflict. I think that's foolish because the bottom line is friction creates polish, is that when you go through a relationship and you have arguments, you have fights, that can polish up the relationship and make it actually stronger. And I think that's a missing component in some of the influencers' topics out there. So it's important to have that partner that we're grateful for the time we spend with them. We enjoy the time, especially when it comes to men. Men, it's like nice gets equated to boring, right? But there is a distinguished difference between nice and kind and strong. I always like to say that true confidence for a male is love and strength, not one, not the other, but both. They have to be combined. Love and strength. And then having that presence in there and also having those boundaries in there as well. So that's the difference, is that a lot of women will look at the men and say, oh, he's just nice. He's just nice. He's kind of this way or kind of that way. He doesn't stimulate me, right? Or he's not dangerous. He doesn't appear very dangerous, right? In this kind of perception. But when you have love and strength there and you have boundaries, then what happens is that really shines. And not to mention independence is in there as well. Because when you are independent, you honor the other person's space, you respect their boundaries, but you hold your own as well. And this is where it's at. Like if there's true words that are spoken, you're hearing it right now. That the men that are listening, it's about that love, strength, boundaries, and presence, and that independence, not codependence, independence. Now, we want to understand that we want to build the kind of love that sustains. And what rarely happens is people skip the trust building stage nowadays. Nowadays, people that dive into relationships too quickly, they skip that trust building phase. And if you make trust first and you take the time to develop that, despite your impulses, despite how gorgeous they are, or how attractive they are, and you take your time to develop that, then guess what? Your relationship, it's not cake anymore, it's substance. It actually becomes substance. So there's a lot of narratives out there, and we have to be able to shift that, and we have to redefine what excitement actually means, because real excitement isn't found in unpredictability or emotional chaos. It's in being seen. It's making your partner have some sense of safety, in knowing that you can fully show up and still be loved. And the truth is healthy relationships are a breeding ground for growth, a breeding ground for courage. It cultivates a deep connection. And that might not look like fireworks, but it feels like home. And that's a thrill that never fades. So the final thought of the chocolate cake effect is that it's a mirror. It asks us to examine what we're hungry for and whether feeding ourselves what we actually truly need. Because the narcissist, they lead with icing, the frosting on the cake. There's no real substance. There's no real depth. And the broccoli is like a higher form of value and nutrition. It's the kind of thing that actually fills you. We stop chasing the glitter. We start looking for the ones who actually bring substance to the table. They have a sense of depth, a sense of meaningful connection. Because when the icing melts, all that's left is what's real. And that is what actually lasts. And I'll see you on the next video. Take care.